8, 7, 6, 5,
This is exciting.
3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Amber Vilhauer. How you doing today, Amber?
I'm fantastic, and I am ready to drop some serious value. So thanks for giving me a platform to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, just for everybody who's watching and listening, I have seen tons of content online from Amber, with Amber, and just the sheer brilliance and generosity and philanthropic nature of what Amber has done has really inspired me. And so a couple months ago, I reached out and I was like, I want to talk to you so bad. So thank you so much, Amber, for making the time and
No,
carving out
this is
time to be
great.
here.
No, I'm
Okay,
super excited.
so let's jump right in. I want to know, what is your story?
What what is my story? Well, I think people are usually surprised to learn that growing up, I was very quiet and shy and awkward. I did not know how to communicate, and I didn't believe in myself very much. And I bring that up because when people find me on YouTube, they look at me as this like really confident and bubbly and energetic person, and I'm very positive and strong, independent. And but it didn't start that way. So it was definitely something I had to learn, and I had to learn discipline first. And I had to have a desire to grow into something more than what I thought I was. And luckily enough for me, when I was just starting college at the University of Arizona, I got a job selling Cutco cutlery, which, for those of you that don't know, is basically high end kitchen knives. But anybody who has heard of Cutco usually knows that the sales representatives that come through Cutco are some of the best entrepreneurs. They are really set up for success. They're great at sales. They're great at relationship building and speaking. And it's true. That was one of the best experiences that I could have ever hoped to get in life, especially at a young age when I was so impressionable. So I will say that I got over a lot of my fears. I grew my mindset and my discipline just through that job. And I grew into management quite quickly and started being in charge of the division and having influence on a regional level and breaking national sales records and as a young 20-something-year-old. And it was only when I kind of felt like I got to this place, Ben, where I had grown as much as I felt like I could, and I knew there was something else beyond Cutco for me. And I leapt off into the unknown, and I mean unknown. And I ended up getting this temp job, sort of, helping to run an event in Denver, teaching entrepreneurs how to get money into their business and how to market it online. Well, at this time, I didn't even know what a blog was. And this was probably 12, 13 years ago. I knew nothing about the online world. But lucky for me, it must have been divine. The people who were speaking at that event were some of still today's most successful internet marketers of all time. And they became my friends because I was running the event and I got to learn from them. And I thought, this online thing seems cool and challenging. Like I won't get bored with it. And there's always room to grow and learn something new. And so in 2007, I started my company and I named it NGNG Enterprises, which stands for No Guts, No Glory. And it started off as a website agency. So I taught myself code, hired a designer and a programmer. We started building websites. And over the years, now fast forward to today, we've built more than 650-ish websites, especially for authors, speakers, and coaches. And I support authors with marketing and book launches and feel like one of the most blessed people filled with gratitude that maybe walk on the earth every single day. So I love what I do and who I get to do it with.
Let's talk about when you were younger and I believe you said you were shy and you weren't really confident in yourself. Why?
My older sister cast a pretty big shadow. She was like the star child. She was like superstar. And she got straight A's. She was well liked. She was Miss Teen Arizona, for crying out loud. And I am a sensitive soul and I'm an internalizer. So when I experience things, I internalize it and I sort of process it within. I'm a little introverted. And so all of these things just sort of swirled together and I just stayed pretty quiet. And when you're the quiet one, you don't make a lot of friends. So even when I started school, I was kind of the weird one, the weirdo in the corner that didn't know how to talk to people. And that sort of carried with me throughout high school. And I think the more lonely I felt, the more my standards lowered as well. And so all of a sudden, when I was in high school, I was hanging out with people that I thought were good enough for me. And that was like pretty dark individuals. Not people that were doing good in the world. And I just, it was kind of scary. I think I put myself in situations that I just didn't know who I was or how to show up in the world. And I wanted love, I wanted acceptance and belonging, but I think I was sort of sabotaging that to a degree because I didn't know what else to do. And it took getting out of that environment into an environment that was full of positivity and encouragement and belonging that I never looked back after that.
What were some of those situations that you found yourself in?
Oh, I was constantly grounded. I mean, I was constantly grounded. I think I would go to parties or I started smoking cigarettes at a young age, just making dumb kid decisions, and I think I was just sort of experimenting. I would find myself in situations where, somebody would be stealing something and I would just be in that crowd. And I knew it was wrong, but again, it was like, this is what I felt good enough for. This is where I thought I belonged. And so I think I needed that kind of contrast. And actually, now that I get to look back on it, Ben, I'm grateful for it because I can feel like I have a greater understanding of humanity, which really helps me build relationships. It helps me to understand how people can feel despair and depression and not like themselves and feel lost and have that in common with them. I can link back to that feeling and I know how to get myself out of it. So it allows me to inspire others to do the same.
What was the turning point of when you were like, okay, that's it. That's enough. I have to make a change.
I was 16. It was the rock bottom moment of my life. And that night I went to a party. And what I didn't know is that party was set up for me. And so there was about 60 or so kids there. And I was very uncomfortable pretty quickly. And at that point, I actually didn't have a car. It had been dropped off. And I was with one friend, if you can call her that. And so I'm at this party and the energy is just like, my soul is screaming, girl, you need to get out of here fast. And so I called my friend. I do air quotes because these are not like genuine friends the way that I know friends today. However, I called my friend Matt and I was like, can you come pick me up? Here's where I am. And he said, oh, I can be there in about 30 minutes. And so I had to sit in this uncomfortable environment for 30 minutes. And during that time, the door busted open and 5 girls came in and I got jumped that night at the party. And yeah, it was super shocking because even though I didn't, I guess to a degree I'd put myself in that environment, of course, because this is what I thought I was good enough for. And really, it was just out of a desperation to belong and to be accepted and to be wanted and valued and seen and loved, right? And so I was just looking in the wrong places for it. And so anyway, I got jumped that night and I remember every second of it. And I remember this moment specifically where I had tripped over a grill as I was trying to run out of the house. And that's when they sort of started kicking me and hitting me and stomping on me. It was terrible. And it was weird though, Ben, because there's this moment where I could almost like rise above it in some weird way. And I knew what was happening on an intellectual level, but my body went completely numb. Probably your human instincts, right, to protect yourself. And I could just sense the crowd standing around me watching this. And I just remember thinking like, why is nobody helping me? And it was so horrible. It was just this horrible feeling. And it was also an awakening, and just realizing like, this is not your crowd. These are not your people. This is not who you are. And you need to come out of this now. Like, you need to change and you need to make different decisions. And long story short, I did end up kind of getting myself up, and I ran out the door, and just in time, my friend Matt showed up, and it was this horrible grieving period. I mean, I was hysterically crying. I was so upset. I didn't understand what had happened to me and why. And, I just wanted to be loved. And then this happened. I was a teenager, and I would say the end of the story is that after everything kind of blew over, right? Because then you have like your mom saying, I'm going to call all of those girls' parents. And I was like, don't do that. You'll make it worse. Right? So after all this stuff blows over, and you're left with yourself once again. And I guess what came through, Ben, is that I did need to make a change, and it wasn't going to happen overnight. And I felt like I had the most enormous mountain to climb. But decision by decision, day by day, I would grow into the person that I would feel proud to be. And that's exactly what I did.
What were some of those actionable steps that you then took once you made that decision? I feel like it's a very pivotal moment, and something that, if you're going in one way and then you just absolutely pivot, then it sets you on the path. But just because you're on a path doesn't mean that you continue to make the decisions to stay on that path. So what were those action steps that you took? What were those decisions that you made to lift yourself up and to really change your life?
They were just moment by moment decisions. For example, I remember this moment when I was a junior, so about a year later, and it was an English class that I was taking, and the teacher gave me a D on my report or whatever I'd written. And it was like, you should come and see me in office hours because you're better than this. Now, the old Amber would have just said, screw office hours, and I probably would have gone and done something stupid to get me grounded again. Or I would have gone home and internalized it and cried, or listened to heavy metal music, or whatever it was. I would have made things worse for myself. And instead, there was that decision, and there was that moment. And so I decided to go in for office hours. I didn't want to do that, but I knew that that's what I needed to do to get myself out of the situation. And so that's exactly what I did. I went in for office hours. I rewrote the paper. I ended up getting like a C+. And that moment validated something for me. It's like, okay, so making the harder choice can be the better choice. And it got me into a better position. And that felt really good, because once I got that better grade, I got recognition from my teacher. And that felt good. That felt like love and valued, right? It felt like that's more of the feeling that I want inside, not the feeling of destruction and then getting in trouble and having that sort of response and attention, right? So I think it was just, there was nothing impactful that I can share beyond that. It was just conditioning, like a muscle, right? You go to the gym and you exercise it.
You mentioned discipline before.
Mm-hmm. Why
did that stick out to you?
I'm highly disciplined, even today. We're all human, and we all wrestle with taking the easier path, right? Like, of course, I would rather sleep in from the hours of 5 to 6 a.m. because that's easy and it feels good, but it's a short-term win. The harder decision is to wake up at 5 a.m. and go exercise. Like, why would I want to do that? That's hard, right? But what happens is at the end of that hour that I get up and make the decision to exercise, I have an abundance of energy. And that energy sustains through the entire day. Whereas if I sleep for that hour, my energy might taper off after maybe 3 or 4 or 5 hours. Versus if I work up and make the hard decision, I stay disciplined, it actually lasts longer. I'm happier, it reduces my stress, I manage conflict better, right? And so it does, though, it requires absolute discipline every decision, every moment of every day, not just thinking about what do I feel like in the moment? Well, in this moment, I feel like eating ice cream, but that's going to be a short-term win, and it's not going to get me closer to how I ultimately want to feel day to day. And so what would make me feel that way? Well, if I ate a bunch of carrots, I'd probably live longer. And this would be the scenario. So I think there's an element of, if you're being disciplined and thinking in advance, thinking of the future. How do I want to feel in the future? How do I want to be in the future? How do I want to impact others in the future? And then using that to help you make better decisions and stay disciplined today in this moment.
So how do you want to feel? And how'd you come to that conclusion?
I'm glad you asked this, because I've actually put a lot of thought into this, and it hit me on the 31st of last year of December, that how I ultimately want to feel more than anything else is energetic and strong. And I came to that determination because if I am feeling energetic and strong, then I know that I'm going to be able to contribute more to my marriage. And if I'm able to give that into my marriage, then I'm going to get more out of my marriage. And that's going to be awesome. It's going to be stronger and happier and more fun. If I am energetic and strong, it means that I can actually handle my 2.5-year-old toddler, who is so much energy. It really is remarkable. It's remarkable how much a 2.5-year-old has energy-wise, just saying. So I want to be strong enough and energetic enough to have fun with him and be able to run around all day and all night long with him and read books and dance and do this and do that and sustain that. And I have a business to run, and there are a lot of people relying on me. And I like that. I accept that responsibility and challenge. So in order to be as productive as I need to be, in order to be the best leader I can be, I need to be energetic and strong. And so that was where it came to. I can create more love. I can create more happiness. I can create more fill in the blank as long as I remain energetic and strong on the inside.
What happened on the 31st that triggered this realization?
I was just sitting down and doing some planning. I'm not huge into like New Year's resolutions. I don't start, new disciplines on the Monday or the first of the month. I just start it, right? So a new year doesn't mean much to me, except that I just get to keep going on this journey, right? However, this particular year, I wanted to I was really focused on my behavior. I was really focused on how I wanted to feel. And it was sort of a little bit of a transitional time in my career, because I think I had enough experiences stack up where I was ready to up level my message and position and my goals and dreams. And so I was just kind of in this contemplative state, and I was reading articles or listening to podcasts or journaling, and I was just trying to internalize, I guess, what is this shift that's happening inside of me. And through that, I was just actually at the time I had ordered Brendon Burchard's High Performance Journal, which is fantastic, by the way. And I think so a lot of different things were contributing to this time, Ben. But in that moment, I thought, it's never been good enough for me to just decide to wake up at 5 a.m. to work out. Like it works for a little bit and then it tapers off. So I tried to approach it from a different aspect. And I'm a very emotional person. I'm a highly sensitive person, for those of you that know that book. And so a lot of the things that I do need to be based on a feeling. And so it kind of hit me like, oh, why am I not starting with the feeling? How do I want to feel? And then backtrack from there. Now, what do I need to do to get me to feel this way? Well, I knew that there was an element of working out, exercise, moving my body and getting stronger. but also very much so in my mind, right? So how was I going to stimulate my thinking? How was I going to, position myself in different circles, being around people that would force me into new perspectives and thinking in a different way. And then on a personal level, like what could I be doing for an outlet to have some adventure? So I decided also during that time that this year I was going to learn beatboxing, which I have been doing. And it is so random and surprising to people. And no, I'm not going to do it right now.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I am so beginner at this that like, no. But I will in the future, guaranteed. And it's going to be awesome.
All right. Well, now you got to come.
Just a little further along. Just a little further along.
Now you have to come back on the show and do it.
Oh, for sure. I will. It will be amazing, right? It will be amazing. So I guess I'm just looking at how can I be more playful? I'm also looking at improv, songwriting, piano. I've been listening to a lot more piano and playing it this year. So I guess I'm just multi-dimensional, looking at what are all of the different ways that can contribute to this feeling, because then that's going to pour over into everything else. And not only will I have a better impact on the world around me, but I'll feel better in here. And that's what really matters. So I'm in a really grounded place in my life, maybe for the most I've ever been in my whole life.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it seems like because of your nature of being, more sensitive and really internalizing things, that because the feelings and the emotions are very important and they impact you a lot, going for and really setting your sights on what feelings you wanted kind of allowed you to tap into your own superpower that may have it's almost like you kind of shifted it. Instead of it being like the reaction is I have these feelings and emotions that don't really serve me, going for the feelings and emotions that do serve you, and then figuring out the other things to get there.
Very well said. Yeah, you got it. And I've also come into a pretty big realization this year how important relationships are to me and how much I focus on relationships. And so I've been taking, like I took the Enneagram assessment and I took the Strengths Finder assessment, which put relation at number one for me, which I find this so interesting. And I bring this up, Ben, because I think you would appreciate it, that in the beginning of my life, I felt like I sucked at relationships and I didn't understand how they worked. I didn't know my place in the world. And now that's one of my greatest strengths and where I put all of my energy and attention. And it's like we really do create a life where, based on our strengths, and we're growing and we're evolving, and how can we give back? And it's just, I think life is so fascinating when you can take that 30,000-foot view and look at where you were and how it's shaping you into something else of where you could be. And this journey, this discovery of trying to figure that out is remarkable. And that's what I appreciate about you, Ben, is you are always seeking and learning and growing. And I think that's amazing. I can't wait to see who you are when you're like 50 or 60. It's going to be amazing.
Well, hopefully I'm still me, because that would be really confusing if I wasn't. But thank you very much for that. So I'm curious. I don't know the right way to say it, but the Enneagram, what's your thing? What were the results of that? What did that tell you about yourself?
So I'm just getting into it more so, but I'm an Enneagram 2 with a 3 wing. So I'm still learning about the wings and how it all works. But, very much of the people, I'm a driver, I'm an achiever, I'm a people pleaser, and I'm a doer. I'm really driven into action, into getting things done. And it's interesting because while that is such a strength of mine, it's also my biggest area for weakness if I'm not careful. So when you're a really strong doer and achiever, you place a lot of value on that and you get recognition back, which powers that achievement more, right? But if you're not careful and if you don't know how to properly manage your energies, you'll burn out over and over and over again. And you'll end up feeling really defeated and frustrated a lot. And so I would say that I've been really focused on where that line is, where I can still be that driver and that achiever, but not so much that I burn myself out, right? So where's the balance? How can I stay grounded there? I would say even 5 years ago, my work days would feel like a rush, man. I mean, constant adrenaline. And it, in some ways, can be interpreted as chaos, but I loved it. It fed me. It felt like I was productive and I was using my talents. And now what I realized is that that was really exhausting. So how can I still get the same amount done or more, but without always triggering that fight or flight sensation, without always pumping the adrenaline? And it's a shift to feel like you're still doing enough, even though the feeling inside has changed. So actually, if I can just be calm, can I trick my mind into that I'm still using my talents fully? It's hard to articulate, but there are little subtle shifts that I've had to really pay attention to. And it's hard. This is not easy work. And it's like a freaking lifetime of building this habit and of reinforcing it and assigning value to it. And then having to tell yourself, no, it's this way now. So pay attention, body. It's super tough, but I'm working on it. And the Enneagram and StrengthsFinder and all the things that I'm doing to really understand myself, it's all playing a role in helping me make just these fine-tune adjustments to protect myself so that I can be of better service to all.
I'm so fascinated by that. So, and by the way, I'm a 3-2.
Oh.
So like I just took that the other day, and I think that is so fascinating, and it's like very surprisingly accurate. So
I know. So is StrengthsFinder. Have you taken that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm competitive, and then there's I don't remember all of them, but
I know it's hard to,
yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
But yeah, so I'm fascinated by what you're saying with the dynamic of doing more or maybe accomplishing more without necessarily like within a day doing more, or maybe lowering the amount of like adrenaline pumping from all the activity and running around and being crazy, and not in a bad way, but like doing crazy awesome stuff, but really almost it seems like focusing more on the result and the ability to multiply your time and to really leverage your time, but to not always have to be on and to be more calm. I don't know. That is kind of a balance.
It is. It's super interesting. And I think the thing that has helped me more than anything is just staying present. And that's, I always thought that I was staying present, but I think there are different degrees of presence. So for example, I could be present right now. Where I'm answering your questions, but I'm off thinking about, oh my God, I got to do this thing and I'm behind on this and I got to get back to this. But oh yeah, I got to order that one thing. And your mind, you can do multiple things at once, right? That can exhaust somebody who's an achiever because your mind is firing on all cylinders while you're trying to deliver something and, keep your energy up so it delivers through the camera, so you're impacting the viewers. I mean, it's a lot, right? And I just took that for granted. I thought that's just the way that it was. And no, that was not productive or healthy. And it did have an effect on the connection that I was able to make with somebody else, which is my thing. That's really important to me. So now I'm just here. I'm fully here. And that allows me to slow everything down, which somehow weirdly makes time feel a little bit longer. I'm able to create a deeper connection with the person that I'm here with, even in a virtual capacity. And that translates through to the viewers and so on and so forth. But it just feels like, I think my fear in being present to that level is that I wouldn't get enough done because I'm not multitasking. but somehow it all gets done in the end, right? But what the biggest difference is that I'm calmer and my connections are deeper, like I mentioned, and I think I'm protecting my body, which is our most important resource, right? We have to be careful about that. So I think presence is, and I'm not like the world's best expert. I'm on my journey learning, but this is what I have come up with so far.
I love that. And it almost seems like because you're taking the time to slow down and you're able to focus the full force of your being on one thing, you're able to go much deeper in that one thing. And that is leading to getting all of those things done just in a different way. Like instead of going horizontally and getting a little bit of a lot of things done, it's going more vertically and getting a lot of bit of little, or however you say that, a lot of little things.
I'm with
You
you.
know
I
it, yeah.
know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think the viewers do too. But yeah, I mean, it's I think maybe because you're present, you're not burning on all cylinders, you're protecting your energy, that therefore you have more energy to give in the moment. And then the amount of time that it takes to get something done is faster because you have the energy for it. Just like when we are completely exhausted on every level, it takes 10 times longer to do anything because our minds are just not functioning the way that they could. So I think it's just kind of, it's a subtlety of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is something that I found has happened to me repeatedly because I am so much about trying to achieve and just trying to like go, 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 go. And like, I struggle with patience from time to time. So I'm just like, I want to do this. I want to do it now. I want to get it done. And like, let's move on. Let's kill it. But when you just kind of step back for a second and say, okay, these are the outcomes that I'm trying to achieve. Okay, now it's clear to me that these are the three most important things
Yeah.
to put my attention on, and focusing on like the most important things, at least in my experience, instead of trying to get everything done, but just focusing on the most important things, those little things really take care of themselves.
It's true. Or you find out that they didn't matter to begin with. And, you know, so many times in the past, I was busy just for the sake of staying busy. Like it was almost an empty task or an empty project. It took me nowhere, but I needed to know that I was busy and achieving and doing, right? Because that's where I thought I would get validation. And the Enneagram also touched on that for me then, where gosh, it totally held me accountable of how much I do seeking validation and needing to always know that everything's okay in my relationships. And it can even be down to a physical level that this held me accountable to, where if I'm talking to you in person, I will oftentimes just reach out and touch your arm when I am making a point or when I'm saying something to you. And that's my way of making sure that we're still on the same page and our relationship is okay. And I wasn't even aware of it to that degree until I read the Enneagram. And so now I've really been exploring all of the ways, all of the things that I'm always doing just to make sure that everything is okay and that our relationship is okay and that you're comfortable with me and that everything, you know, it's like a little busy bee. And all of it is in my desire for just love and to serve others, right? So it's coming from a good place, but I'm seeing things that are just unhealthy and unnecessary. And so I'm not going to stop touching your arm to make sure that we're okay, because that's not a threatening thing. It's a nice thing, right? It can make you feel good. But I think learning about your motives and why you do things can help you decide, is this something that serves me or that I want to move forward with, or something that's a little ridiculous and now I'm mature enough I can just let it go.
Well, I think I love that. And I think it is so important to learn about ourselves and figure out, okay, well, why do we do this? Why do we do that? How can we leverage those innate qualities of ourselves in order to be, to feel the most loved and to feel the most fulfilled and to be happy and to be energetic and strong and the things that are important to us. And, it's interesting. I was telling you before the show, I love studying really successful people, and I love studying people who are like really, really like in the past. They lived a long, long time ago. One of those people who is actually pretty modern still is John D. Rockefeller, and it's fascinating to think about how much he like how much he created, how much success he was able to achieve. But his work days were not that jam packed. I mean, if you study the primary documents
Mm.
and the biographies, and you really reach into his history and take a peek, he would take naps during the day. Like he would have an important meeting, and
Oh,
he would always be there for the important meeting, and then he would just take a nap right afterwards. And this was somebody who at the time, like at the end for him, he had accumulated something around $400 billion. I think it was $409 billion, roughly, making him one of the wealthiest people in the history of
that's
humankind.
amazing.
Yeah. And like, at one point he got fascinated by like horse riding or trotting. I think it was that was the way to say it. And he would go like a couple times a day. It's like, but he's not always in the business, but he was leveraging his time, and he was making sure to focus on the most important things to create that. So I think you're totally right of there is such a fine balance, because if you don't take care of yourself, you don't learn where that balance is for yourself. You could burn yourself out.
Yes. I mean, there's a part of me that thinks about that and wonders how somebody like him would manage the world we live in today, because it's a very, very, very different world. And so I think that we also underestimate the pressures that come from society today, the pressure to perform. I mean, I see it. I mean, the digital world and technology has brought so many wonderful things to us, right? I mean, this is remarkable. You and I are talking over pixels right now, basically. And people around the world are listening to this. That is a remarkable gift of the time that we are in. And, to every positive, there's an equal and opposite. And, technology in the digital era is driving a tremendous amount of sickness and disease, because we are all feeling like everything has to be accelerated. And then for people like you and me that are natural achievers and doers, we feel it to even accelerated height, right? Because it's like we want to drive and achieve and do, but now we have to do it 10 times faster because of the world that we live in. And so that is what is propelling this stress and this pressure and creates disease. And so I do think that just like a pendulum, it has to start coming back in the other direction. I don't know if we've reached that maximum height to where society says, you know what, this is freaking nuts, man. What are we doing? Before it starts to kind of come back down, and what will the ramifications of that be? I mean, like it's really interesting to study over a long period of time. But what's always been true is that we do need to take care of ourselves. And sometimes we have to learn that lesson the really hard way. I was just talking to a client this morning who was that doer achiever, man. She was the breadwinner. She was going on all cylinders until she had cancer. And then it was a rare form of like a blood disease that she had. And then she had to change everything. And that is devastating, to then go back and change 50 years of the way of your beliefs and the way that you've conditioned your body and how you do things. And, it's like, hopefully we don't have to get to that point, but that's what's inevitable if we're not taking care of us first. So I don't know. I don't know what the answers are, but I do know that the more you can stay in tune with yourself, because we're highly intuitive beings, and you will know if you are out of whack or if you are in sync, and just keep trying to go back to being in sync. And I think you should be fine.
You mentioned how you focused on what you wanted to feel and who you wanted to be and the impact that you wanted to have on the world. Who do
Yeah.
you want to be?
Well, I want to be me. I mean, I'm a complicated person, but I just want to be somebody that's full of love. I mean, I want to be somebody who's smart, who is always facing her fears. I want to be somebody who is always taking the next adventure and not settling and not getting bored or lazy or complacent. And I'm not somebody who gives into my ego, all of those. So I think it's who I want to be is made up from a million little decisions, and learning lessons and then fine tuning from there. But I want to be somebody that I'm proud to be first, and that I can be proud to be like my son's mom or my husband's wife, and play an important role in all of the relationships that I have. That feels like a trick question.
Well, what sort of what about the impact part?
What I love about the work that I do right now is the people that I get to work with. When I started my website agency, I was like, I build websites for everybody. And it took me about 2 years of building websites for everybody when I decided that the people I liked to work with the most are authors, speakers, and coaches, because the impact that they want to have in the world. I mean, authors, speakers, and coaches are like good people, generally speaking, and they want to do good in the world. And that inspires me like no other. So the position that I'm in today is really cool because I get to influence the influencers, which is also a great responsibility that I take very seriously. So by being my best self, when I have a conversation on a podcast or with a client or with just a random person, I have an opportunity to positively impact or influence that person, knowing the ripple effect that that's going to have as well. So it can take any form really, as long as you are out in the world taking action for good and trying to create more positivity or more healing or more success in general.
I'm interested to learn about 20, 30 years from now, and then like 10,000 years from now. What sort of legacy do you want to create and leave behind?
It's a really good question. These are really good questions. We should give it up for Ben for being so insightful and thoughtful. This just feels like it's going to sound a little fluffy, but honestly, I think the legacy is in the feeling that I leave behind. If I can dare to say that boldly. There's the quote that people will never remember what you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel. I mean, I'm butchering that quote. Sorry about it, but you get the point. And it's important to me that through my presence and openness and willingness to be brave in relationship, that I can quickly go deeply in a connection with the people that I talk to. And that feeling that they get through that bravery, through that openness, changes a person. And I've been told that regularly, actually. The people that have interactions with me, there's a lot of love in my life now. And it can be just quick little interactions, like the woman I was speaking with today. I hadn't spoken to her maybe once in the past year. And yet we come back and it's like it's a love fest, right? And there's a trust there and there's a willingness. And because of that space that I've opened up, and that feeling that I've given to her, that fills her cup, for lack of better words. It gives her energy, and that energy is what's going to allow her to be a better mom or to open the door for somebody when she otherwise might have been in bad mood that day, or the impact. It's the ripple effect. So my legacy is not going to be something like, oh, wow, she sold 10 million books, or, oh, wow, she's got a net worth of $4 trillion, right? I don't believe it's going to be anything like that. But I believe that when I leave this planet, there's a feeling that's going to transfer out to as many people as possible, that is going to impact the relationships and the impact that they have in maybe those ways, those noteworthy ways. So my ego doesn't need, I'm not here for maybe something that Caesar would have done. I don't know, maybe, who knows what's going to happen. I'm here for the ride, as big and great as it can get, but it's definitely the way I make people feel that will create a legacy that's more meaningful than anything else that I could probably achieve.
We've talked a lot about, through the course of the discussion, relationships.
Yes.
And it seems like those are very, very important to you. Mm-hmm. And I'm very curious about that, because the relationships are definitely the most important thing to me too. One of the things that I'm so tremendously grateful for with the podcast is being able to build relationships with incredible people. I mean, that is so rewarding and so amazing. I'm just tremendously grateful. But I'm interested. I'm just tremendously grateful. But I'm interested to learn what your philosophy is on developing that connection, on developing the deep, meaningful, the genuine connection with another person.
A colleague of mine, Dave Smith, said it really well on a Facebook post recently. And he just said that he likes to build relationships without expectation. And I loved how simply he said that, because that is the way that I approach relationships, that somebody will schedule a 45-minute prospecting call with me. And they walk into it and they think I've got my script ready with my objection sheet next to me and I'm going to, sell them hard. And instead, I start the call by saying, hey, I'm here for you. Whatever you want to talk about in the next 45 minutes is fair game. I have no script. I'm not here to hard sell you. If you want to work with me, it's because you see value and we think it's a fit. And if not, that's okay too. But I'm here to serve. So open it up. Let's go. And you should see the response is like, what? I was not expecting that. But I believe that if I give value and through that share my beliefs and how I can support you, if it's a fit, you'll hire me. And if it's not a fit, then you won't. And that's okay too, because I don't need to be all things to all people, but damn sure I have inspired you and I've opened up your perspective during that call, and it will have an impact, for sure. So no expectation of what's going to come of it. And sometimes these calls, Ben, will last 2 hours. That's happened so many times where it was a 45-minute call and it lasted 2 hours or more. And they are just mind blown. Even if they didn't hire me, doesn't matter. But I will invest as much as I possibly can into that interaction, because I don't know what's going to happen from here. And this approach has made running a business feel like a cakewalk compared to all of the stuff that I hear everybody else talking about, how hard it is and painful. And I have a marketing problem. I have a sales problem. I don't have those problems. My biggest problem is that I have to be really careful not to put myself out there too much, because the interest is too strong. And if I don't know that there's an edge to how many people I can work with. That is legitimately my biggest problem. So, I think that I can tell you from a tactical perspective, by focusing on relationships, I have, and adding in some systems and some strategy and maybe a dash of creativity and maybe some speed, and some consistency. When I add in these other ingredients to relationships, marketing wise, if I turn on the hose, it's like I get perfectly qualified prospects coming in, as many as I want, and then I can just turn that hose back off for a little bit. From a sales perspective, it's allowed me just here again, some of those ingredients in addition to relationships. When I really started understanding these concepts, I went from a 25% sales close to an 85% sales close in half the time that it used to take me to talk to prospects, also while doubling our rates. And from an operations standpoint, working with my team and delivering a consistent output and, customer service and their experience and our reputation has been awesome. So I think that relationships are the foundation of business. And if you have systems and strategies that you put in place for marketing, sales, and operations, it'll be a breeze to grow your business. It just will.
Outside of the business world,
Mm-hmm.
can you talk about like the impact that different relationships have had on your life? Like, I guess a better way to ask that question is, um, which relationships of yours have been the most profound in your life and the most impactful?
Well, obviously, the relationship with my husband is the most meaningful of my entire life. I didn't believe in soulmates until I met Jason. And that was 11 years ago. And we met at a pumpkin carving contest party. And it was stupid cute. And we've been together ever since. And now we're celebrating our 5-year anniversary, wedding anniversary in a couple of weeks. And out of that relationship came the most perfect child that I could have ever asked for ever. Now, yeah, he has a lot of energy. He's a toddler, but seriously, I cannot believe how wise and conscious and unbelievably smart and talented this kid is. Like, it's just moves me to tears. Um, Obviously the relationship with my parents. I might be stating the obvious ones, but they hold the most value. This is my inner circle. These are the people that I would do absolutely anything for. And what I love about my parents is they have ultimate contrast. My mom is this like single mom, doer, achiever, world traveler, risk taker, entrepreneur, independent, extremely wise and spiritual. And my dad is not spiritual at all, not religious. Very rooted, very grounded, common sense, logical. Didn't take a whole lot of rest, took some rest. I mean, had a little bit of adventure, but never traveled outside of the country. I mean, like they're total opposites. And I'm super close with both of them. And I have gotten so much wisdom and love out of those relationships that has just poured over in everything else that I do. So I'm not somebody, Ben, that has millions of friends. I'm not partying all the time. I have a few choice select friends. I've got lots of friends in different places that I might call in for different moments or different experiences or to share certain conversations with. But I really value my closest inner circle too. It's a safe space and it's beautiful, and there's a lot of sharing that happens there.
How do you decide who gets into that inner circle?
I don't know that it's not like I have a criteria. There's not a checklist. I think that I just have different relationships with different people, probably more so based on where they are and what they need. So I get something out of every interaction, out of every relationship, right? So I'm not a friend that's going to require really anything from you. And so for me, I tend to be the person that other people come to me for certain reasons, and then that's where the friendship lies or where that relationship lies.
That's awesome. So, Amber, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing some of your time with me. It's been very special, and I want to say thank you.
Oh yeah, it's my pleasure. I hope that it caused an opening, a thoughtful opening for some people. And I would love to hear, if I may, I have a call to action. I would love to hear in comments on social media, or if somebody feels comfortable emailing me, I would really be curious to know what moved the needle for you. What did we talk about that did create an opening for you or that shifted your perspective? Because these aren't the things that I traditionally have spoken about, but these are things that I'm speaking about more and more and more. And so I'm doing a little bit of market research in a way, Ben, to find out where I should really explore even further, where I can go deeper. So any feedback on the show would actually be super valuable to me. So I just want to thank people in advance for being here and for being open to participate.
Awesome. So I have one more question for you.
Great.
Then we'll wrap it on up. So I'm 24, and from my perspective, I want to know, and asking very specifically from your perspective, what question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Man, what question should you be asking me? What is the greatest lesson that I've ever learned that would help me make the most of my relationships? I think that's what I would ask if I were you, Ben, is like, what have you learned that really would help me in the future in all of my relationships that I may not know yet?
Can you pretty please answer that question?
Yes. I think it is in having open and honest communication. That's the number one thing that I learned. And I thank my first husband, Ramon, for that. And, I think in relationships, because we have experienced pain in the past, there are layers of trust issues or hesitancy or hidden meanings, or especially if you're a female, and I hope the females don't start bashing me for saying this, but you say one thing and you really mean another. It's like there is a little bit of a mind tease. Women have a hard time just being direct. Men have an easy time with that. But with women, it's like, we want you to just know the answer automatically. We don't want to have to tell you how to respond. We just want you to know how to respond. Anyway, so I'm just being honest. But in that relationship, I have nothing but such respect and honor for that relationship. And he feels the same, that what we really learned is just to be open and honest with one another. And that gives the relationship the best chance at success and happiness. And that translates into all relationships. If it's a client relationship, best policy is open and honest communication. Something that I've learned in building other people's websites, you're largely emailing back and forth. Well, email tone is constantly misunderstood, misread. So if I even whiff, the first whiff that a client may be feeling off or something went sideways, I immediately step in and say, you know what? Let's do a call, or even now I'll do a quick video and I'll say, hey, so-and-so, I think that we started getting off on the same page and I just want to correct it. Here's where I'm coming from. I think you're amazing. And I'll just pour that sincerity into the video or into the email or the call, and immediately corrects the situation. So I guess I've just really learned to nip it in the bud right away, to be really open and honest and humble. And you can't go wrong outside of that, really. So that's what you need to know as a young 24-year-old, which is so amazing that this is so great. Your whole life ahead of you. It's great. And so do I, but yeah.
Well, thank you very, very much, Amber. Again, I meant what I said before. I'm very grateful that you choose to share some of your time, and it's been very special for me. So thank you.
Awesome. No, I appreciate the conversation, but it's been meaningful for me as well.
Awesome. And to everybody who's watching and listening, I want to thank y'all very, very much. Y'all are the reason that I do this. So thank you very much. I love y'all. I really, really do. And I will see you